everybody, DeathsStalker here. So another weekend and another MotoGP race. This is the second race at Misano. I will simply put the name up here if you would like to practice your Italian. But basically everyone's starting to call these races Misano 2, and pretty much all the other tracks where they've had double header weekends. All the reporters are all doing the same thing too now. So as far as the race went, it was a very exciting and interesting race. The Friday, Saturday practice was pretty much like you normally expect. The regular suspects were more or less where they should be. The only exception was Stefan Bradl, who is the HRC test rider, had to withdraw from the race. He had a problem with a nerve in his elbow on his right arm, which of course is your braking and throttle arm, and it was causing him some discomfort and lack of control with the bike. So apparently they did a surgical procedure, and they weren't certain if he'd be ready this weekend. He went out for the first practice session and said no, he wasn't comfortable with the way he was able or not able to control the bike to his ability, so he withdrew. Now the other interesting one was Franco Morbidelli, the guy who won the race last weekend, and he came down with a stomach virus. Now of course there was the jokes, you know, stomach virus is, you know, because like he won the first MotoGP race, and I imagine there was a few adult beverages involved, but I think it was more of either a stomach flu or possibly a light case of food poisoning. He was green as a ghoul the whole weekend, even after the race was over. So with the teams down one rider, there was and the other one not doing too well. Other than that, everything was pretty much as you'd expected. With qualifying, Fabio and Maverick were like just on fire, but Pecco Bagnaia, who was on the podium last weekend, was also putting on a pretty good show. Jack Miller, you know, timed it really well for the for qualifying and got himself into Q2 along with Dovi, and then he timed his lap in the final qualifying to actually get himself in the front row. Maverick Vinales got the pole, an absolutely stellar lap, and Fabio Quartararo was on the front row as well. Now the Sunday morning warm-up session, the surprise was Alex Marquez was the fastest, and that was in race trim. The Yamahas were all behind him. Now Jack Miller had what's called an off-throttle high side. It's where the throttle's closed and the bike pitches you over the bars, and they are the worst high sides around because your traction control and slide control don't work because the throttle's not open, so there's nothing for them to close. So the end result was he got his bell rung pretty good. He was a little bit sore and worse for wear, but he was more than planning on getting out there and racing. Now the Moto2 race ended up getting red flagged because although it's been a beautiful weather all of last week and most of this week, they had a rainstorm come in. Now it wasn't supposed to rain till later today, actually after racing was complete, but it showed up early, and they don't have spare bikes, so they actually had to stop it, and they made some delays, and they ended up finishing the Moto2 race with a 10-lap sort of a sprint race. Now the interesting thing was there was a concern that the MotoGP bike race might be delayed, but they sort of cut down on the preliminary stuff to actually get the race started on time. And when the lights went out, and compared to last weekend's race, the lights actually did not, like, you know, everyone on the grid, and the lights like blinked out a nanosecond after they were ready to go. There was actually a good 2 or 3 seconds before they actually got the light out started. So no problems with that. Jack Miller got a beautiful head launch off the line and was first in the first corner. Maverick and Fabio were pretty quick as well and tucked in behind him. Maverick, a couple corners later, managed to get Jack and pass him. And Jack made a few mistakes. Fabio sort of fell back a bit, but was doing okay. Now the surprise was, in the first lap, Aleix Espargaro, who races for Aprilia, he was coming into, I believe, turn 2 or 3, and lost the front end of his bike, and his bike went down, and his bike sort of hip checked Franco Morbidelli off the track. Now, luckily for Franco, he just ran off the track and got back on, so he didn't crash, which was like, you know, he's already having a bad enough weekend. Aleix got the bike restarted, but I guess it had too much damage and it wasn't able to finish, so he was pretty upset. A couple corners later, Valentino Rossi going into a corner. No, like, everyone was around there, but no one touched anybody, and Valentino just lost the front end and crashed out. Again, he got restarted, got on the track. He ran a bunch of laps, but I guess something wasn't quite right, and he just pulled off the track, and his weekend was done, which was too bad. He's still looking for that 200th podium in racing. Now, Brad Binder, who's famously known for not having great qualifying, but being really good on Sunday, was cutting through the pack, going like crazy. He was getting himself up to the front group, you know, looking like it was going to be another Brad Binder performance, and he just lost it going into a corner and crashed out. He got the bike restarted, and about 2 corners later he crashed again, so his race was done. So it's like, does anybody want to win this race? So Jack Miller was falling behind, and you know, he was getting passed by more and more people, and then eventually he actually just pulled off the track, complaining that the bike had no power. And just before I got my bike to ride out here to do the review, I was reading on Twitter that Ducati discovered a tear-off had been sucked into the engine through the cowl vent in the nose of the bike. Now, if you don't know what a tear-off is, it's a plastic film that goes over your visor, and they have tabs on them. They usually have a couple on one side, a couple on the other side, and they alternate. And the idea is, if your visor gets covered in bugs, tire debris, or oil, you can just peel it off, and you get your vision clear. And they've been used in racing for as long as I can remember. They were used before I even started racing, and they're pretty common. I always wondered what would happen if one got sucked into an engine, so now we know. It's unfortunate for Jack, but that's racing. Now, Maverick was in the lead, but Pecco Bagnaia was cutting through the field. Now, he had gotten on the podium last weekend, and he had actually been showing pretty good form all weekend, but he really hadn't done any more than 9 laps before he would take a break in all the practice sessions. Because you remember, this guy broke his leg 6 weeks ago, and it was still healing. So he surprisingly got through everybody and managed to take the lead, which was, you know, quite surprising. So he took the lead of the race, and he was like running away. So that was really surprising. So then the next thing that happened was Paul Espargaro had gotten himself up into 3rd place, and in front of Fabio, and Fabio just could not seem to get by him. And at the same time, Joan Mir was also working his way up. Now while all this is going on, Pecco, oh dear, hang on, I am going to be doing a U-turn because I just tarred and chipped this. Oh, he did this last year. Alright, let's turn around. Oh, I hate tar and chip. Okay. So anyways, back to our regular schedule program. So Pecco was out in the lead, and it looked pretty much like he was running away with the race. Maverick really couldn't get on him really well, and he was looking like set to get his first ever MotoGP win. And he went into one of the corners and he just went down, like he just lost it and he was gone. So Maverick now had the lead, and Paulo Spargo was in second. Now the interesting thing was that Paul had started with a soft tire, and soft tires were not expected to last. He used the medium last weekend, and it just didn't work with the bike. They just couldn't get it riding comfortably. So he was just, you know, doing what he could do. And he knew the tire was going to be going out. So with about 6-7 laps left, he knew the tire was gone. Like he said, it just said goodbye. And he had zero traction going on the side. So he was in the corners, he was sort of like making himself as wide as possible and do what he can do to make it hard to pass him, and then he get on a straight line and he stand the bike up on the center tire and use the KTM's acceleration to just power away from Fabio. So Fabio wasn't getting anywhere. When Joan Mir came through, and he very quickly just got in front of Fabio, then about a lap later passed Paul. And then Fabio realized, like, with the time running out, he's got to go, and he rode really hard and got past Paul. So Paul went from second to fourth. Now Fabio had been getting warnings for exceeding track limits. Now you're only allowed to have X number of these warnings per race before they have to make you take a long lap penalty. And then when he actually passed Paul to take third place, he had exceeded track limits to do it. So the race officials said he had to do the long lap penalty, and on the last lap that was his last chance, and he didn't do it. So he ended up getting a 3-second penalty, and ended up with Paul actually being 2 seconds behind, got third place. So in the end result was that Maverick won his first race of the season, and I think that's the 6th winner of 7 races so far this season. And Joan Mir showing himself to be a true contender. Paul was thrilled, he's on the podium with the KTM, and Fabio is what ended up finishing 4th. Now surprisingly, Maverick Vinales, who was not having, or not Maverick, Andrea Dovizioso, who was not having a stellar weekend at this track, I believe he finished 6th, I think it was, and I'll put it here if whatever he finished. Even with a poor finish, he is still leading the MotoGP Championship by 1 point. So it was a wild and wacky weekend, to say the least. So anyways, I need some fuel, and so I'm going to shut down here. So hope you enjoyed it. Death Stalker.